Movement and Meditation. My name is Patton White, and I am the Artistic and Administrative Director of Beacon Dance, and I am coming to you from the Beacon Dance Studio in the B Complex, which is an artist-owned and operated cooperative in the Capitol View neighborhood of Southwest Atlanta. And this morning, we are going to continue our week of work that is focusing on our muscular system and finding how we can access different elements of the muscular system and how that can help us with that balancing between the mind and the body through the work of Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen and her body-mind centering work. And today, what we're going to be doing is also filtering some of the movement that we had done on Monday through the lens of some of the ideas and themes that came up at our story circle that we had on Wednesday. And the prompt for the story circle was to share a story of a time when you felt powerful. And because that's one of the things that we can access through our muscle system is this idea of power and how it can be manifested within our mind and body. And one of the first things that came up in one of the stories was this idea of influence. And so the story shared a situation where somebody had had a positive influence over somebody else, and that they felt a sense of power having done that, not in any sort of imposing sort of way, but as an encouraging element. And so let's begin with our arms just hanging down by our sides. And again, I invite you to do this either standing or seated, however you wish to be. I'm going to remain seated for most of the time today. I may stand up a little bit, but arms just hanging down by our sides. And like we did before, we're going to begin to palpate our muscles in the forearms. But this time, we're going to add this idea of influence. And so as we are massaging the forearms, how can we begin to bring this sense of wanting to influence the quality of the muscles through the touch that we are providing? And all the way up into the forearm, or the bicep, I should say. The forearm was down here, into our bicep. And now all the way up to our tricep right there on the outside of our shoulder. And now let's just brush from the shoulder all the way out through the fingertips and all surfaces of the arm. Feeling the sense of the one hand that is doing the work. It's getting to know little bits and pieces about the arm and all the muscles, and we're trying to find that sense of influencing in some way. And now let's switch to the opposite side. Beginning by just massaging. Noticing, if you take a moment to really allow your eyes to close and just feel what it's like. Moving up into our bicep now with the massage action. What are we noticing just through the act of touching one arm with the hand at the opposite side. Now up to our our deltoid. What are we noticing? How are we trying to influence now the idea of the brushing down and getting the blood or the fluids flowing through the muscle system, influencing with the use of our hand how the other arm is feeling. And now let's take some time to just spend massaging, working out the muscles, not the bones. The bones are underneath there, but we're really just trying to find the muscles, the tissues of the hands. Still influencing, warming up. And now let's take the hands and press them together and press the base of the palms down towards the floor so that we're starting to stretch out. We did this stretching action a little bit differently on Monday, but we're going to start by stretching out the underneath side. Now let's interlace the fingers and then press the palms away from the chest. And again, bringing the hands back together, pressing the base of the wrists down towards the floor. And then interlacing and pressing away. And now let's just take a moment to shake and hang, let the arms just hang there. It just got sunny. All right, now let's take our focus into our shoulders. One of the ways that literature often portrays confidence is this idea of squaring off shoulders. That somebody who is being portrayed in a book or a story as having confidence. Oftentimes the writer will talk about how they squared their shoulders and set themselves into a position or a stance or a shaping that portrayed a confident sense of power. And so let's take a moment now to focus on our shoulder girdle, which is made up of bones and muscles, and beginning to just, with the fingertips, brushing from the center of the sternum out towards the edges of the shoulders, just light brushing touch across the clavicle. And now let's take one hand and brush just lightly down the trapezius, the muscles that the shoulder girdle hang from, and just switching to the opposite side, brushing, finding a lightness with this idea of squaring our shoulders. So the squaring of shoulders doesn't have to be this the tensing of the muscles, but it can be a release of the muscles to just rest on the structure of the skeleton itself. The muscles of the shoulder girdle resting on those bones, the clavicle, the tops of the outside of the shoulder, and the scapula in the back side of the body. All of those then rest on our rib cage. So let's take a moment to just breathe in and exhale in a confident manner by releasing any tension that we may be having or sensing in our upper body, in our shoulders. Squaring the shoulders off by simply letting them hang on the skeleton. Confidence. All right, we're going to move on to, so those are two themes that we've played with so far, this idea of influence in a positive way and this idea of confidence. We'll keep coming back to those, but we're going to move on to our next idea, and that is resourcefulness. And so for our resourcefulness, we're going to think about utilizing the muscles of the extremities and of the torso itself to find those places that you feel may be a little bit tight in the torso. And take a moment to utilize the hands, or perhaps the backside, the parts of the skeletal structure itself, to give a little bit more of a massage to those areas that you're feeling tight. I know for myself, this area right down here, the side of the back, the erector muscles, I often find myself very tight in here. And so I'm going to use different parts of my hands, and I'm also going to use different ways of shaping my body to find the sense of resourcefulness, to access how I might release some of that tension. For yourself, you're finding where you're tense, where you're tight, all the way up and down the full length of the torso, and finding how, and if you're in a chair, you might use the chair itself to help kind of provide a little bit of a pressure into where you want to release that tightness. And now I'm going to start to include the lower part of my body and help or allow it to also help with this idea of finding resourcefulness to help encourage release and relaxation of the muscles system. Another way we can think about the muscles is as if they are like a sponge. And we can squeeze all of the tension or all of the water out of the muscle. And I'm using my hands as an example of that idea of squeezing, but I'm also finding a tensing in the muscles all throughout my torso, maybe into my legs as well, but tensing up and then releasing. And as the release happens, that's actually when, if you're thinking about a sponge, if you're working with the sponge itself, as the tension releases, then the sponge fills back up with water. So we tense to squeeze everything out, and then as we release, then we feel all those tissues return to be filled with water. And for this, we're also thinking of water as relaxation, or more specifically, connecting back to our cellular fluid, which is that just being, awareness, released, relaxed. Let's shift a little bit more into the legs. I'm going to go ahead and stand for this. And using my body to as a way to not only gauge the amount of activity that my muscles in my legs are engaging in, but also to feel this sense of accomplishment. With each day, we may have many different things that we are intending or hoping to do, and sometimes it can feel like we have way too much to accomplish, or sometimes it may feel like we don't have enough to accomplish. Who knows? But if we focus on those things that we are, even if they're just a tiny little thing that we are able to accomplish, then we are again accessing another way of being in our muscle system. So I'm going to simply shift my weight back and forth, peeling my feet off of the floor, and then engaging a little bit more in my muscles to soften through the joints, the muscles controlling that shifting action from one side to the other. And as I'm doing this, I'm thinking about the torso from the pelvis all the way up to the head as moving in one piece rather than sequencing like we've done at times before, but just simply the torso shifting in one piece from one side to the other. And if you're doing this standing and want to hang on to the back of the chair, that's also a great idea. I'm now going to place one foot in front of the other and shift my weight forwards and backwards, again finding the muscles themselves helping to ease my center of gravity from one direction to another, forwards and backwards, forwards, backwards. I'm going to bring both feet together and then shift to the opposite foot, going forward and back, forwards, backwards, hanging onto a chair if you need to, but really just feeling the center of gravity moving through space and realizing that we are accomplishing something while we're doing this. And I'm going to bring my feet back together again. And now I'm going to go side and front and back. Side, side, front, back, side, side, center and start with, this time, my left foot, right, forward, back, left, right, forwards, back, left, right, forwards, back, yeah, ba, 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 and coming back to center. So, I'm definitely feeling more accomplished now. Let's move on to our next theme, and this is the last one we're going to introduce today. And this is emotionally available. I'm going to come back to seated position for this. Emotionally available. In body, mind centering, our emotions are, and this is true for Qigong practice as well, that the organs, our internal organs, are kind of where our emotional states live. And so I'm going to be having a dialogue between my organs and the muscle system by just making or allowing myself to be emotionally available as I go through an entire sort of internal dance with my body. So I'm allowing, what are my emotions, what am I feeling right now? And right now I'm feeling a bit of personal joy, and I'm going to allow this to then guide which muscles I'm choosing to activate. How much tension I may choose to engage in, how much release I may want to play with. What else am I feeling? How else am I being emotionally? I'm also being emotionally available because I'm a bit curious right now about how I can, let's go back just a hair, how I can really focus on my feet and try to relax the muscles in my feet while also engaging in them. On Monday we spent some time stretching the back side of the leg. And so I'm going to also spend some time doing that by reaching forward, folding here in the hip socket, lengthening. This time I'm curious because I'm trying to reach even further beyond my toe. And switching to the opposite side. Folding, curiously reaching, pulling back. Let's spend a moment just reconnecting with a seated version of, actually, we should go palms up and then pull back. Palms up. This action that we take from Qigong called Monkey Offers Fruit. Switching to the opposite foot that's forward. And here's where my emotionally available and curiosity comes into play a little bit. I'm going to try this idea of offering fruit out to one side and then to the other. So taking that forwards and backwards action and placing it into a side to side. And now let's try offering up. This is sequential, but I could also do this simultaneously, or up, and releasing. All right, we are out of time for today. I want to thank you all for joining me. And next week we are going to be shifting our focus to the organ system, actually. We're going to be focusing more on kind of what we were touching on in this last little section, the organs and how we can access different emotional states. And so we'll focus on specific organs. We're going to use some of our time to be focusing on the heart specifically. And because of that, we're going to have our story circle prompt on Wednesday next week be about a time that you felt open or closed to another. So it doesn't have to be both, but it can be a time where you felt open to somebody or a time where you felt closed to somebody. Thank you again to Fulton County Board of Commissioners for funding this ongoing project. And thank you all for you attending, and also thank you to our individual donors who are making this possible as well. Thank you again so much for coming, and have a great rest of your day and weekend, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday. Bye-bye.